Of course, not all fragrances are created equally. They are the forgettable ones and the very memorable ones. I choose to go with memorable fragrances for the most part. I know there's a time and a place and people go like, oh, I don't mind having a boring fragrance every now and then that I can throw on. Even if it's boring, I still want a very memorable fragrance. And in this particular video, I have some fragrances that I feel are quite forgettable. They are good though, a lot of them are good, but I feel they are still quite forgettable. And I would rather wear something over these fragrances. And I'll give you the reasons why I think they are boring and forgettable and give you the alternatives that I feel are much more expressive. And the first is going to be from Rasasi, and this is Hawa's Pink, part of their numerous Hawas, flankers coming out. And unfortunately, a lot of the flankers from Hawas are not really cutting it for me. And so is Hawas Pink. I'm not really a fan of it. It has this very promising note of neroli, cinnamon, and nutmeg at the top. In the middle, there is orange blossom, there is tuberose, there is golden marshmallow, and then at the base, there's cotton candy, vanilla, and tonka. However, the notes are only as promising as they can be. Nothing really exciting to me, to my nose, when it comes to Hawa's Pink. I'm not sure I'm getting any of the notes, that's those promising, delicious cotton candy, orange blossom, cinnamon, golden marshmallow, I'm not getting any of that from this. It comes across as a very flat and interesting floral fragrance. It gives me heavy florals. Unfortunately, I don't get the gourmand aspect about this at all. It doesn't necessarily remind me of anything that I own or have, but it doesn't give me anything expressive and sweet and memorable. It comes across as very forgettable, one of those that nothing interesting truly about it, in my opinion. It's basic smelling, which is good for people, but not for me. So the promise of a gourmand like sort of feel, I'm not getting the maybe tuberose, it's a creamy floral I'm getting from this one, but very little to no sweetness about Hawa's Pink, cinnamon spice, nutmeg spice. No, that nothing really spicy, nothing orange blossom about this marshmallow. No, I'm not getting cotton candy, vanilla, tonka. No, it's an ambry sort of feel. I get that ambry thick sort of feel, but it's more of a floral. It gives me more of a creamy, ambery, floral sort of feel and nothing else. In my opinion, I would not go for a full size bottle. This was gifted to me by my friend Portia, thankfully. Thanks to her, I have a lot of my decants, and I wouldn't say I would want a full size bottle of this. However, if you are looking for a heavy floral fragrance, I would recommend one of my current faves. That is going to be Lafayette Shark. This is more on a very heavy floral scent. The promise of a floral I get in this one, but it's nothing sweet. It's a creamy floral somehow with that tuberose sort of note, and I get a very beautiful creamy floral here, powdery, musky, airy, a little more complex. It's supposed to be a Basiami clone, but I think for my comparison, it doesn't give me Basiami at all. It's on its own. I feel like it's a fragrance on its own. It's a very beautiful, well done, fragrance. So if you are looking for a more expressive, better floral note or fragrance, I would say go for something like Nafaya Shark from Cadlage. If you also want something of a cotton candy feel, which was promised in Hawa's Pink, you might want to go with this basic, simple, but very effective cotton candy scent. Ari Herb Soft. It's a very beautiful cotton candy, sweet, lemony sort of feel. I would rather pick this one as a cotton candy scent over Hawa's Pink, which I'm not getting anything cotton candy about at all. And that is going to be the first set. The next are going to be this one, which I have spoken about, but I hardly speak about this because I feel like in as much as it's a very nice, watery feel of a cherry scent, a very floral cherry, scent, it's quite basic, quite enjoyable. This is cherries from Hayakat Atal. It's a heavy cherry scent, but it's more of a floral, aquatic, green cherry scent with a bit of sweetness and some vanilla. It's beautiful, but it's gives me more of a basic everyday scent. And with time, as I begin to test and get a lot more fragrances, I definitely am going to enjoy some of the old newer fragrances over the older ones and vice versa. And in the case of getting a better alternative as a heavy cherry fruity scent over cherries from Hayakatata, I would go with Bahia Garnet, from Arabia's Prestige. It's a very beautiful, heavy, thick cherry scent. It's more expressive, much more bolder, much more interesting, much more, you know, heavy on that fruit. I get a cherry in this one, but it's a little shy, a little, everyday. It's something that you just, forgettable. It's very forgettable. But this is unforgettable. This is a very beautiful, heavy cherry mango woody, scent with a bit of booziness and, very expressive, very thick and syrupy and pulpy and sexy and loud and super long lasting, in my opinion. So I would go for something like this, Bahia Garnet over cherries from Hayakatata, which is a very beautiful but soft and boring, sort of forgettable, cherry scent. And those are going to be these two in this second group. Afi from Latafa was a fragrance I was looking forward to for a very long time because of the package. Very bold and expressive. And I was expecting a very beautiful thing, to complement the bottle. However, it is not. The fragrance by itself is quite boring. It sort of reminds me of that Valaya DNA, but very watered down, fruity, woody, musky feel. Maybe they were going for that, I've forgotten what this one is inspired by from. I don't know. I have not even checked, for a very long time what it's inspired by. It gives me that sort of Valaya sort of DNA, but like a watered down, nothing to really write home about, very forgettable sort of, experience that I get from this one. I hardly wish for this. I don't think I've ever even wished for this. It's been almost a year. It's still weak and forgettable, and I would not recommend, yeah. But if you want something much more bold and expressive and it's going to be around that same scent profile, I want to go with Perla D'Or from Amaf, Perla D'Or. And this is a very beautiful scent. They said it's their interpretation of Beach Walk from Replica, which I have not smelled. However, this one reminds me of a combination of Tilia from, is it Baron, Tilia, that's, very popular niche scent with Valaya. If you can combine those two fragrances, it gives me the woody, musky, fruity feel of Valaya and that linden blossom lime feel of Tilia. If you combine those two together, it gives it more of an interesting blend. I've never been a fan of Tilia, and I'm not the greatest fan of Valaya, but with this one, it gives it like a very balanced middle that I enjoy a lot over those two fragrances. And in the case of this one, it reminds you of that Valaya, Tilia, Afif sort of vibe, but much more expressive, much more better blended, much more overall better fragrance. I would choose a full bottle of um Perla D'Or over any dupes of Valaya and Tilia, any day. And that is going to be my personal experience from my white test and everything with Perla D'Or. It's a very beautiful scent, And I think if you want something much more expressive, much more long lasting, much more bolder, well done sort of fragrance, you might want to go with this one over the likes of Afif and even over the likes of the Valaya dupes that are around. I feel like I feel like Perla D'Or is much more better somehow in my experience from my wear test and everything. My it's a good one. So Perla D'Or I would highly recommend over the likes of this one. Yeah. And so is this one which was quite popular like a year or two ago. Grandiose Avenue London, known to be inspired by Greenwich Village from Bond number 9. Well, this is beautiful, floral, watery, aquatic sort of feel with that Baccarat Rouge DNA, a hint of that, Baccarat Rouge DNA. But I feel like, why don't you go for something like Anna Biad Rouge? I would choose Anna Biad Rouge if I want that Baccarat Rouge DNA. I would choose Anna Biad Rouge. I would choose Sienna from French Avenue. I would choose Club de Nuit Untold, Club de Nuit Untold from Amaf. Those are better, bolder, much more expressive, much more interesting takes on that Baccarat, DNA. It is not watered down, but I feel like this one feels a little more watered down and a little less interesting. It's not as interesting as I find in those other ones like Untold, Sienna, Baccarat Rouge. Those are very expressive and very bold. I'd rather do those three or those Baccarat Rouges, than a watered down sort of version. Even the original one is like a watered down, much more floral, aquatic sort of feel of the original Baccarat Rouge. So I would go for the original one if I want something much more bolder, much more expressive. So this, I say it's okay. It's okay, but it's nothing really that interesting. It's very forgettable in my opinion. And this is Grandiose Avenue, London. I actually do like Jazz Notes from Fragrance World. I actually like it. It's very sort of soft and gentle. It's supposed to be the interpretation of Silky Woods from Goldfields and Banks, and I haven't come across the original one, so I'll not be able to speak to it. However, I have Goliath's Oath, which is a very bold and intense. The spices are quite sharp and loud with the vanilla and that tobacco feel. I get it. But in the case of Jazz Note, although I like it, I feel like it's quite toned down. It's not as bold and much more expressive that like I would have loved. But the scent profile is beautiful in general. In my opinion, I would rather recommend something like Grandioso Collection Vanilla Floral, over Jazz Note. If you want that spicy, tobacco-ish vanilla feel, that spice, that spicy vanilla. I don't even find this one as a very heavy vanilla. It's quite mild, quite subtle, though very beautiful. But if you want something much more bolder, much more interesting, much more expressive, but I want to go with vanilla floral from Valor, Volari, I want to go this way because this one gives me a lot more intensity. It started off as a bit slow and, quiet, but over time it's getting much more bolder, very smooth, very, you know, spicy, but the spices are not overwhelming at all. I feel like there is a little bit of every element of this one in Jazz Club, but it's a bit lame and bland in a way. But if you want a more expressive sort of version, a spicy woody vanilla, you might want to go with Grandiosos, vanilla floral. Both beautiful, but I mean, if you want something just one and done, you might want to go this way. And I think this is a very beautiful scent, a very beautiful vanilla, quite woody, quite spicy, quite, intense, lasts the whole day. This is very beautiful, very polished and sophisticated. Although, Fragrance World tried with Jazz Notes, they're not supposed to be the same, fragrance, but I feel like if you like this one, you would enjoy this one a lot more better, because it's the same scent family, spicy, woody, vanilla scent. But this is my better, alternative or my recommendation in terms of these two fragrances. Cake Temptation from Paris Corner. I mean, this is undoubtedly one of the most hated fragrances from Paris Corner. At least from what I have read, I have watched a lot of reviews, including that for myself. I never liked this one. It's almost a year, and I still feel the same way I feel about Cake Temptation. It's quite synthetic, that sort of cake feel, synthetic berries and synthetic, strawberries and cake feel. If you want something better, a more better refined cake vanilla heavy gourmand scent, go with Dolzura from Paris Corner. This is a very beautiful take on the cake scent. It actually has a note of cake, just like this one, but this one feels a lot more synthetic and quite annoying and quite sharp and piercing. Whereas in the case of Dolzura from Paris Corner, it is well done. It is their interpretation of Cirque du Soleil, which smells very identical to Empire Victor, the new formulation, and Giggle Puff, that scent family, Giggle Puff, Empire Victor, that it gives me that, feel. But if you want something like a realistic, sweet, fun, fruity cake sort of feel, I think you might want to go with Dolzura as compared to Cake Temptation. This after almost 8 or so months, I think I got it as soon as it was out. It was the last year or almost 2 years ago, but it's still the same way I feel about it then that I feel about now. Still very synthetic and annoying and, yeah, not well composed. But this is a very good, well done cake, vanilla, scent with that, yeah, that is what I can say about it. If you want something of a better quality cake, scent, you might want to go with Dozura from Paris Corner. I was speaking highly about the first one, which is Vanilla Pearl Nuha, Cadillac. But I feel like if you want a more bolder, much more expressive, similar feel, you might want to go with Care Confection. I remember this one coming out and it was compared to Care Confection. It didn't really give me that, Now I can see a bit of similarities here and there, that candy, sugary feel, but this is much more intense. This one gives you that more candy vanilla, whereas this one is a little more airy and lighter. It's still a very beautiful scent, a beautiful experience. But I feel like it's a little forgettable, it's a little forgettable. However, Care Confession gives it much more of an expressive, much more bolder, much more sweeter, much more intense sort of, version of this one. This is good, but this is better in my opinion, a little more complex, a little more smoky. It has that sort of smoky, heavy vanilla feel, sugary sweet, rock sugar. This also has a similar vibe, but it feels a little watered down, a little forgettable in some aspects. You might need to spray almost a full thing to be able to reach the level of intensity that you want from Care Confection, and that is going to be my. It's not a comparison, I love them both, but I feel like if you are contemplating between these two, quite similar, but not necessarily the same thing. This one gives me more of a fruity sort of feel, but this is also a fruit. I think it has pear, yeah, some pear and sugar and stuff, but it's much more intense and a little more complex as compared to Nuha Vanilla Pearl. But yeah, if you find it cheaper, why not? But this is also way affordable these days that you might want to go if you want something much more bolder, much more one and done than Nuha Vanilla Pearl. And that is going to be a wrap for today. And I hope this video found you well. So please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and let me know what you think with these sort of comparison. They're not comparison per se, but I feel like some of them are quite forgettable. So why won't you want to go with the more memorable, alternative or version in the case of getting a one and done, fragrance. And yeah, I hope to see you in my next one. Take care. Bye bye.